I never thought I would witness something like this. An outlaw gang actually became the heroes right before my eyes. That's right, the same people who once made the whole town tremble were the first to step up and protect a fragile disabled girl. Sounds impossible, doesn't it? But it happened right in front of me. In that moment when the entire crowd stood frozen, too scared to move, it was those very criminals who stepped forward. And what they did changed everything. I still get chills every time I think about it. Because it wasn't just a shock. It was a truth that silenced the entire town. Would you dare believe that justice could come from outlaws? Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss what happens next. I was born and raised in a small town tucked away in a valley. It sounded peaceful, but in reality, the place was ruled by money and fear. Can you believe it? Even the police had to bow their heads to the wealthiest people here. The poor lived timidly, anxious every single day. And those with power did whatever they pleased. Have you ever seen an entire town stay silent while someone was being bullied? I have. And the most heartbreaking part was that the only person brave enough to lift her head was a disabled girl. She moved with great difficulty, her legs almost unable to carry her. And yet, her eyes shone brighter than anyone else's in this town. People mocked her behind her back, calling her a burden, a cruel joke of fate. But maybe, she was the bravest of us all. Do you think someone so fragile could ever become the center of a storm? I still remember that afternoon clearly. The market was packed, filled with laughter and chatter. Then suddenly, a group of spoiled rich kids showed up. They spotted the girl and started mocking her. No one dared to speak up. Everyone just stood there, pretending not to notice. What would you do in that situation, stay silent, or stand up? I was powerless too. My heart was pounding, but my feet felt nailed to the ground. I knew that if I spoke up, I'd be the next victim. And then, the most unexpected thing happened. It wasn't the police. It wasn't some legendary hero. It was the very people the whole town called trash. The outlaws. Can you believe it? They were the first ones to step out of the crowd. The rich kids didn't stop at mocking her. They started shoving her shoulders, knocking over the girl's old wheelchair. Their laughter rang out, shrill, cruel, sharper than any knife. Have you ever seen a trapped animal cornered with no way out? That disabled girl, in that moment, was that small, helpless creature. And yet her eyes still burned with defiance. I swear, it was that very look that sent chills down my spine. The crowd stayed frozen. Some even laughed along. What would you think if your very own neighbors turned their backs like that? I wanted to run forward, to scream. But my throat closed up. Because I knew, if I dared to resist, I would be crushed without mercy. The arrogant bullies pushed further. One of them ripped the scarf from her shoulders, waving it like a trophy. Another leaned down and whispered something that drained the color from her face. Have you ever seen a gaze so hopeless it felt like the entire world had collapsed? I saw it that day. And it has haunted me ever since. Then, something even more horrifying happened. One of them reached for the only thing she had left, an old necklace. The last keepsake from her mother. My heart felt like it was exploding. I wanted to shout, to fight, but my legs were shackled in place. Have you ever felt so powerless that all you could do was grit your teeth and pray? The marketplace fell deathly silent. No one breathed too loud. No one moved. And then, from the far end of the street, familiar figures emerged. I recognized them instantly. They were the outlaws the whole town feared. But this time, their eyes weren't the same. Not the eyes of predators. But the eyes of men about to do what no one else dared. I swear, that moment felt just like a scene from a movie. The entire crowd suddenly split to the sides, making way for the figures walking forward. No one expected them to be the most notorious outlaw gang in the region. Have you ever felt the air grow so heavy it could be cut with a knife? That's exactly what it was like when they appeared. Every step they took made the ground feel like it was trembling. People whispered in fear. Everyone thought this time there would be a brutal bloodbath. Because these outlaws were infamous for their ruthlessness, never sparing anyone. I believed it too. I thought they would seize the moment to wreak havoc, to turn the marketplace into hell. But then, I was completely wrong. One of them walked straight toward the girl. The rich kids laughed, assuming he was about to join in their cruelty. Can you guess what happened next? He didn't laugh. He didn't mock her. He simply bent down, picked up the necklace that had fallen, brushed off the dirt, and gently placed it back into her hand. The marketplace fell silent. No one could believe their eyes. An outlaw, protecting the weakest girl in town. The rich kids froze in shock. One of them tried to speak, but the sharp, blade-like glare from the gang silenced him instantly. Can you believe it? Just a single look made the entire group tremble, too scared to move. The atmosphere flipped in an instant. The ones who had once been feared now stood as shields. And the ones who had mocked, now cowered like frightened mice. I stood there, unsure if I was dreaming or awake. Never in my life had I witnessed a reversal so sudden, so complete. And then I wondered. Was this just a fleeting moment? Or was it the beginning of a legend that the entire town would never forget? No one in town could believe what was happening before their eyes. The very people once called trash now stood as a shield, protecting a fragile disabled girl. No one dared to breathe too loudly. No one dared to take a step forward. The gang leader slowly approached. His eyes were cold, but his voice cut through the silence with certainty. Touch her again, and you'll have no way back. Can you imagine it, those powerful, arrogant rich kids suddenly bowing their heads before the man they once despised? One of them forced a nervous laugh, but his voice trembled uncontrollably. I knew then, he had never tasted real fear until that very moment. The girl still sat there, her necklace trembling in her hand. Her eyes no longer showed fear, but hope. Do you believe a single look could change the entire atmosphere around you? Suddenly, one of the rich kids couldn't take it anymore. He shouted and lunged forward, trying to snatch back the scarf. But in an instant, one of the outlaws intercepted him. The sound of metal rang out, cold, sharp, like the toll of a death bell. The market erupted. Some screamed, others stumbled back, but no one dared step in. Because in a single heartbeat, the line between prey and predator had been completely reversed. Have you ever witnessed the most powerful suddenly reduced to trembling sheep? I saw it with my own eyes. And I swear, that image will haunt me for the rest of my life. In that moment, I realized one thing for certain. Justice can come from places you'd never expect. And that truth is something the town would never forget. Do you want to know what happened next? Don't forget to hit subscribe right now so you don't miss the next part of the story. Just when everyone thought it was over, something no one expected happened. The gang leader didn't walk away immediately. He turned back to the girl and suddenly took off a worn piece of metal from around his neck. A strange badge, something I had never seen before. Can you believe it? An outlaw carrying what looked like a symbol of honor. He placed it in her hand, his eyes flashing with a brief sadness I couldn't explain. Why would someone so ruthless act with such gentleness? The whole market stood stunned. No one understood what was happening. The rich kids were trembling, but now it was the outlaws who stripped them of all their power. I overheard whispers around me. Some said it was the badge of a fallen soldier. Others claimed it once belonged to his disabled little sister. What do you think, was it the truth, or just a rumor to fuel his legend? The girl clutched the gift tightly to her chest, tears streaming down her face. But these weren't tears of humiliation. They were tears of pride. In that moment, I realized something. The entire town was witnessing a complete reversal. The ones once branded as criminals had become heroes. And those who had ruled with power now bowed their heads in silence. Have you ever seen a single small act rewrite an entire story? I have. And that is why this moment spread like wildfire, turning into a legend across the land. But what haunted me the most wasn't the act of protection. Wasn't the badge itself. It was his final glance before he walked away. A glance that felt like a promise. A promise that, this would not be the last time we saw him. Have you ever seen someone go from being mocked to becoming the center of admiration? I witnessed it, and I swear it felt like a miracle. Strangely enough, from that day on, the spoiled rich kids went silent. They no longer dared to run wild as before. Not because of the police. Not because of the law. But because of the fear that the outlaws could appear at any moment. So tell me, what do you think true justice is? The silence of the crowd? Or the unexpected actions of those once considered the worst among us? As for me, I came to realize one thing. Life is not always black and white. Some men may be called outlaws, yet their hearts shine brighter than those who claim to be good. Ever since then, every time I see the disabled girl pass by, I remember that look from that day. The eyes of an outlaw, cold yet gentle, leaving behind an unspoken promise. Do you believe that sometimes, it's the outcasts who bring the light? And then I understood. That story wasn't just a memory. It was a lesson. A reminder that sometimes, justice comes from where you least expect it. If you want to keep hearing stories that will give you chills, shock you, and keep you hooked, don't forget to hit subscribe right now. Because trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. After that day, my town was never the same again. The streets I had always known suddenly felt quieter, as if everyone feared reliving the terrifying scene that had unfolded. People no longer pointed at the disabled girl. Instead, whenever they passed by, they lowered their heads in respect. Have you ever seen a single event powerful enough to change the way an entire community behaves? I have. And I've never forgotten that feeling. The spoiled rich kids, once arrogant and untouchable, suddenly went silent. They no longer strutted through the marketplace. No longer dared to use their power to trample others. Because just remembering the gaze of the outlaws that day was enough to make them shiver. And the town's police? They pretended as if nothing had ever happened. But deep down, they knew, they were no longer the only symbol of authority. Do you think that sometimes, restoring justice requires those whom no one dares to trust? Ironically, that was the truth my town had to accept. As for me, every time I walk through that market, I still feel their presence lingering. Heavy footsteps. Cold eyes filled with meaning. As if they never truly vanished, only waiting for a reason to return. The disabled girl still lives there, calmer than before. And every time I see that badge hanging from her neck, I remember that fateful day. A day when the entire town learned what true courage meant, and what real justice looked like. But do you believe me when I say this story isn't truly over? Because the way they left, the look in their eyes before turning away, felt like a promise. A promise that one day, they will return. Many years have passed since that fateful day. The town has changed, the people have changed, but the memory of those outlaws has never faded. People called them many names, beasts, rebels, even heroes. But to me, they were simply the ones who rewrote the meaning of justice in my heart. Can you believe it? Every time I walk past that old marketplace, I still hear the echoes of their footsteps. Footsteps that shook the ground, and the hearts of those who once thought themselves untouchable. And I can't help but wonder, if they ever returned, would this town still dare to bow to the rich? The disabled girl from that day is different now. She holds her head high, her eyes shining brighter than ever. The badge on her chest has become a symbol. Not of fear, but of strength. Imagine that, a girl once scorned by the entire town, now standing as living proof that justice never dies. And I realized, sometimes, the outcasts are the ones who carry the bravest hearts. Sometimes, justice doesn't wear a polished uniform or a shiny police badge. It wears tattered clothes, a weathered face, and eyes scarred by pain. Do you believe a single moment can change an entire life? I do. Because I lived through that moment. My story isn't just a tale to be told. It's a reminder, sometimes the most terrifying truth is also the most beautiful. That justice can appear from where you least expect it. And if you too believe that justice always finds its own way, hit that subscribe button right now. Because there are many more stories that will leave you shaken, surprised, and unable to look away.